Hi guys.
Hi everyone. This is Brenda with FGI Dallas, and I'm going to be interviewing Nia Kelley tonight. So, we have an inspiring story to hear from Nia. So, in 2014, you had a life changing event occur. Will you share this story with us?
Yes, before I start to tell my story, I wanted to preface by an inspirational quote. My husband told me this years and years ago, and it was very evident when I had my stroke. This was meant to be. So here we go. You can't have a testimony without first having a test. So, like Miss Brenda's mentioned, in 2014, 17 years ago, at the age of 36, I suffered from a stroke in my sleep from after taking medication, and that was life changing for sure. At that point in time, I was in the IT industry. I was working as a consultant, and my client was in at the time in Atlanta, Georgia. So I was traveling back and forth, and it just so happened that I was beginning a 2-week stay at home. So luckily for me, my stroke occurred in my home, not on the road. So that was a blessing.
That was a blessing.
Yeah. So at that time, my husband, he was my boyfriend at the time, but he was working, and I didn't report to work for 2 days. And my coworker Mary, she lives in Minnesota. She called me on the phone, and I couldn't speak. I lost all my abilities to speak, and I was having trouble with vision and with walking. So Mary called 911 from Minnesota, and the firemen and came to my door, and luckily I was able to walk to answer the door. They didn't have to break in, but luckily I was able to see them. I couldn't communicate with them. In my mind, I was having a full-fledged conversation, but at that time I couldn't say anything. So that is it took me. I'm still recovering from my stroke, but I have come a long way. Like I mentioned, I couldn't speak, so I had to learn how to talk again. My first words was mom,
Oh.
and my mom was there. It was her. She was in my therapy, my rehab place, and that was my first word was mom.
Oh.
Yeah, and so that then began my journey of healing.
It's really a big story that we all should be impacted by, because you've come so far, Nia, in the time that I've known you, and it's just remarkable. So kudos to you for all that you've done to push yourself and rehab yourself. So
Thank you very much.
so your mother-in-law was instrumental in some therapy suggestions, and I should say at the time she was really just your boyfriend's mother. So now she's your mother-in-law. So tell us about those, the suggestions she had for you.
Yes, well, she is an accomplished seamstress in her own right. So she bought us a sewing machine for our house in 2012, and that sewing machine sat in the laundry room for 2 years, unused in the box. And after my stroke, I was in Walmart, and I saw some sewing patterns, and I said, you know what? I have not sewn anything since middle school. So I said I will buy a pattern And when she comes for a visit, maybe she can teach me how to sew. So after Thanksgiving in 2014, I had my pattern. It was a commercial pattern for an apron, and it took us about 10 hours to sew. But she took me to Joann's and gave me a tour, and I was so overwhelmed, sensory overload for me. But I was able to pick my fabric and my notions, and she taught me how to read the back of the envelope. We started to cut the fabric, and at that time I didn't have much sensation on my right side, so it was very hard for me to feel the tactile and the feeling of the fabric. So um, I just went through the motions. I was able to cut, and she taught me how to thread the sewing machine, and I had a hard time reading the instructions from the paper pattern, but that kicked off, um, launched the event that was a catalyst for fashion, for me loving fashion. So after we sewed the apron, I said, there's really something here, because I said it's really pointing out the logic, problem solving, hand dexterity, for me speech, and I said there's really something here. So at that time I decided to develop a sewing program for people, adults with brain injuries such as strokes. And my nonprofit is called So Happy Foundation. But that experience for the sewing the apron, then I wanted to know all about pattern making, and I said did my research, and I enrolled in El Centro, now Dallas College, in the pattern making program in 2017. So it was such a beautiful, I think, a beautiful story about how the crafts can really impact and influence people to develop a deficiency.
Yeah, that's great. And I can testify to this because as an instructor for Nia, she really pushed herself, and in spite of any kind of deficits or challenges, she pushed herself to complete her projects to excellence, and became one of our top students here in the program. So congratulations for your hard work and your success.
Thank you.
Along the way, you became a student member of FGI. Tell us about some of your experiences and how they have impacted you.
Yes, as a student member coming from a different industry, having insight into the fashion business has meant the world to me. So FGI has really been instrumental in providing some exposure, some that I would have not had otherwise. So my first event for FGI was the Rising Stars in 2019. And Prashanda, if you're listening, watching, thank you so much for your friendship and your mentorship. You are just an awesome person, and thank you for allowing me to understand the behind the scenes planning of this awesome event. Yeah, so that was my first event. It was in person for FGI. But during the pandemic, there let me say the pandemic was catastrophic, and I'm so sorry for people who have been impacted by this awful disease. But even with the pandemic going on, there were many virtual events that we had the opportunity to take part in during the pandemic. So we had with the rising stars on the national level. We had the Ruth E. Carter event from SCAD in Atlanta. That was hands down my favorite event.
Mine too. I love that. I enjoyed
Yes.
it tremendously.
Yes, and then we had the Beauty U, the 3 series event. Fashion and First Ladies was also awesome, and the Black fashion movement hitting figures was also very insightful. So being able to keep up with the trends and the evolving nature of the fashion industry has been really eye-opening. So thank you, FGI Nationals and the Dallas chapter. Thank you for allowing students to have these opportunities to really see how the fashion industry is evolving during these challenging times.
Yes, I think pivot became our buzzword for the pandemic.
Yeah.
And people really rose to the occasion, and I, as well as you, enjoyed all the panels and staying connected to industry folk when we were sort of quarantined at our homes. So it was very good. So has FGI stimulated you, and what thoughts and information and exposure has it impacted you with?
Yes, just being exposed to the different industry events has really got my mind working in towards technology innovations like e-commerce and graphic design. I was just introduced to graphic design over the pandemic by the suggestion of Rashonda, and now I just love it. I have been making some videos for my classes, and really embracing the challenge of marketing in a digital format. Also, I love data. So I love to analyze data, and I also learn how data can be used to visualize buying trends, customer trends, all those things that data and engineering have taught me in another forum. Now I can apply those skills to fashion.
So yes, I think Nia is going to be one of those who can help us create that crystal ball. She can gather and analyze, and that's something not everybody in the fashion business has. So kudos to you, and I think it's great that you're pulling upon your background from your previous, if we spoke pre-stroke, to the after with the fashion. So the integration of the two, I think, is very key, very important, and going to be very relevant to the fashion business.
Yeah, and Miss Brenda, you also you put the idea in my head about data and its practical applications in fashion, as far as not only customer trends or buying trends, but in inventory management and supply chain. So there are all sorts of applications for technology and data, and I know that I will be instrumental in providing that knowledge to this community. But just having the venue and knowledge about the industry operations. I didn't know that coming in. So having FGI and area events to take part in is so revolutionary to me as a student, and I think to the industry as a whole. Just letting people know how they can influence the industry.
So I think that's something that we look forward to, Nia, going to work after graduating from our college and finishing 2 degrees with the creative part and the more engineering pattern and technical part. It was also another exposure. I sort of mentioned to her about bringing and tying in together
Mm-hmm.
her past and the integration of knowledge and technology, and she can do spreadsheets. So how can FGI help you in the future?
I think continuing to have the events, and also exposure to the market center and the process of getting into the market center. I think that will be very impactful for students to learn.
Well, we've sure appreciated all that you've shared with us today. I know some of it could be very personal, and I said it's so inspiring that you've taken something that, like you said, could have been a roadblock or something that stopped any progress, but you never let that hinder you. You just pushed through. And so for me, you are truly an inspiration, and I know you've really inspired many others. So it's been so great to hear your story and let it be shared with many other fashion group members or other interested fashion people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.